welcome everyone. Let's get underway. Well, good afternoon everyone and welcome. Today is the Commission's public forum on our draft decision for Greater Western Water. My name is Kate Simons. I'm the chairperson of the Essential Services Commission. Please be aware this forum is being recorded to ensure access for those unable to attend today, and any statement, comment or question you make will be included in the recording, which we plan to make available on our website. Just to start the forum today, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of all the lands we are joining from today. For me, that's the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and water of the service area of Greater Western Water. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal people who might be here today. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come together this afternoon. First, I'd like to introduce staff from the Commission. I think you can see them on screen here, but our Executive Director of Price Monitoring and Regulation, Marcus Crudden, our Director of Water, Dean Wigginton. We've also had our Project Manager and today's speaker on behalf of the Commission, Chris Hutchins, and we've got other members of our water team at the Commission as well. From Greater Western Water, I would like to welcome Managing Director Marie Lang, who will be speaking on behalf of Greater Western Water. I think I can see you there, Marie.
Thank you, Kate. Yes, definitely online. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks very much, Marie. We have General Manager Kessia Thompson. I think I saw Kessia before. Welcome, Kessia. And other members of the Greater Western Water team. Many thanks for being here today. And I'd like to also thank many of our stakeholders and others in the room today for making the time to join us for the forum. Just before we get to the agenda, just some quick housekeeping today. You can find access to both the chat and the question and answer function in the bar menu at the top right of your screen or window. We will be monitoring both your questions throughout the session, so feel free to put anything in those two areas for us to come back to for the Q&A session. Please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking to avoid any feedback and background noise. In addition to your participation today, you can provide written feedback via the Engage Victoria website. Please let us know if you'd prefer to provide your feedback in another way. We really want to make sure this process is accessible so we can capture a range of views. The web address for our Engage Victoria page is on the slides there that you can see, and so that you can access that. And I'm sure there'll be something in the chat later too for your easy access. Just for today's agenda, which is on that next slide there, I'll just use the first part of today's forum to give you a bit of a brief introduction to our role in price regulation. But as always, the main purpose of today's forum and an event like this is to hear from you and answer any questions you might have on our draft decision. And to help shape today's discussion, we'll also be covering how we assess the price submission and our draft decision. Then Greater Western Water via Marie will have the opportunity to respond to our draft decision as well. And then we'll have the opportunity to hear from you around the online table. And we really appreciate being able to have an honest and open conversation with you today, as your insights really inform our decision-making process. So just a little bit about us. We regulate Victoria's energy, water and transport sectors, local government rate caps and the Victorian Energy Upgrades Program. And we've been regulating water prices for more than 20 years in Victoria. So for the water sector, we approve prices and service standards. We monitor and report on performance and administer customer service codes. And we're currently reviewing new water prices to apply from 1 July 2024 for Greater Western Water and Goulburn Murray Water as well. And the prices we approve reflect an assessment of the efficient costs water businesses need to recover to provide valued services to customers. So following consultation, we will issue a determination that sets the maximum prices that Greater Western Water may charge its customers. I think the next slide means that I am going to hand over to Chris Hutchins. Chris is going to step us through how we assess the price submission and our draft decision. Thanks very much, Chris.
Thank you, Kate, and welcome to Marie and the Greater Western Water team, and thank you everybody else for coming along, making the time to join us this afternoon. I'll just very quickly run through the price review assessment process and then look at the specifics of our draft decision on Greater Western Water's price submission. So this was assessed under the same framework as all the other water businesses. We had 14 last year in 2023. Basically, we assess the price submission to ensure it meets all the requirements of the Water Industry Regulatory Order, or WIRO. Also, the requirements we set out in guidance we provide to the water businesses ahead of putting their submission in, which includes our Primo incentive framework, how that applies in this case. And basically, our guidance also enshrines the requirements that are set out in the Water Industry Act and the Essential Services Commission Act. Thanks, John. So the pricing framework is essentially a propose respond mechanism. So the water business proposed services and prices that are consistent with the order, our guidance and other legislation. If we find that our assessment finds that the proposal meets those requirements, we will generally approve and accept it. As we go through the assessment, we might identify particular bits or parts of the proposal which we don't consider meet those requirements, and that's what we've identified in the draft decision. So we also, the framework has us put out this draft decision in the first instance, which allows the opportunity for the business itself and any other stakeholders to respond before we make our final decision. So just for Greater Western Water, there's some unique situation for them in this price review, mostly around the formation of Greater Western Water, the merger of City West Water and Western Water, and the businesses came together as one in July 2021. So both of those businesses were originally would have their pricing decisions were open until the end of June 2023. So they would have been assessed with the 14 other businesses last year. But given it was the first submission as the new entity, there's a lot to manage and understand the impacts of the integration and how the business might deliver long-term benefits to customers. Greater Western Water requested a 1-year extension, so we were able to grant that, and prices and service standards extended under the previous pricing determinations. We then provided Greater Western Water with guidance that included these specific issues around business integration that took that into consideration, and also the 1-year extension that had been granted. Thanks, John. And just the timeline. So you see we provided the guidance to Greater Western September 2022, about a year ahead of when the submission was due to be lodged with us at the end of September last year. Since then, we've been busy assessing, working with the business, seeking extra information as required so that we could come to our draft decision, and that was published on the 26th of March. Here we are today, and submissions close next Tuesday, the 7th of May, and that's when we'll also receive the response from Greater Western Water. We'll then set about making our final decision, and that will be released somewhere around mid-June, if all goes well. And the new prices will apply from 1 July 2024. So our assessment's very broad, covers a lot of areas, and all the different aspects of a price submission are very interrelated. So while we assess these different components, we also have to assess how they all come together harmoniously. So we look at the engagement that Greater Western Water undertook with its customers and how it used the feedback obtained through those engagement processes. We test the expenditure forecasts put forward in the proposals and the demand or water consumption forecasts. We verify the supporting assumptions that sit behind those proposals. the Primo framework has us looking at how the businesses manage the risk, and that's the price risk, that customers aren't being asked to pay more than they need to. And also we look at the performance of the business during the current pricing period. How's it gone against its commitments in this period? We look at the OPEX, operating expenditure, and capital expenditure forecasts, both the costs and the timing assumptions, to make sure that we consider they're reasonable. And we engaged a specialist consultant to help us do that. It's a lot of work to get through. Next one. So that's the process. So what did our draft decision find? So first and foremost, we've accepted the 4-year pricing period, and that will bring Greater Western Water back into line with the other businesses that were assessed last year, and they all had a 5-year price period. So this will just bring them back into alignment with most of the rest of the water sector. A lot of the proposals in Greater Western Water's submission and our draft decision approval relate to the transitioning of the two former businesses into one. And that the work that Greater Western Water had to do there was to allow consistent or move towards consistent prices and service levels across both former operating regions. So the City West Water region, which is now called the Central region, and the former Western Water region, which is referred to as the Western region. So our decision recognises and acknowledges all the work that Greater Western Water has done to bring these two quite separate businesses together over a pretty short time frame. We accept the customer outcomes that were proposed. We recognise that it's two different sets of outcome commitments that have been brought into one, along with service standards and guaranteed service level commitments from Greater Western Water. And we note the new outcome, Heal and Care for Country. A key part of this submission was the tariff reform that brings the tariff structures that allow pricing the elements of the tariff structure to be the same between the two regions. So they weren't the same between City West Water and Western Water in some regards. So we've approved the combining the sewer disposal charge with the variable water charge for those customers who have both sewage and water. This is effectively removing the separate sewer disposal charge in line with most other businesses. Also for the Western region, it still had a 3-tier inclining block tariff on water. So the 3rd tier has now been removed. So it'll just be the 2 tiers in line with the other metropolitan water businesses. And those two moves are key to allow this harmonisation of prices over the next number of price review cycles. And it's a key strategy underpinning Greater Western Water's price submission. The price path proposed focused on reducing prices in the first year of the coming period, 24-25, and the business will retain what we call a tariff basket form of price control, and that allows a little bit of movement from year to year between different individual tariffs that sit within a defined bucket or basket. And that will allow the business to continue to harmonise the prices between or across the two pricing regions. The proposal includes significant capital investment to continue to improve water supply infrastructure, which supports the tremendous growth through the Western Corridor. And that growth was the main driver for merging the businesses in the first place, to support the growth through the Western Corridor. The capital investment also ensure water reliability and security in these growth areas alongside climate change. And there's significant capital allocated to improving wastewater treatment plants, particularly in the Western region, and that'll help Greater Western Water continue to reduce its environmental impact. We note 3 of the top 10 major capital projects were for wastewater treatment plants in the Western region at Woodend, Gisborne and at Romsey. Thanks, John. Our draft decision didn't approve all aspects of Greater Western Water's proposal. So it did note that a portion of the operating expenditure forecast, we didn't accept the full proposal, particularly in the controllable operating expenditure area, and I'll cover that in a little bit more detail shortly. Also, some of the capital expenditure, 3 particular programs, we've proposed to reduce the expenditure or not include the expenditure in pricing. Now, just with capital, we'll just point out that a decision for us to not include an allowance in pricing doesn't mean the business can't go ahead with the project. We're just saying we don't think customers should be asked to pay for it at this time based on the information provided or what's known about the projects themselves. The other area our draft decision didn't accept was around the new customer contributions. Now, these are the charges developers pay to contribute to the capital investment required for new developments or to join into existing infrastructure. We found that the proposal wasn't clear on how it had met the requirements in our guidance. Now, the 3 pricing principles for NCCs in our guidance essentially point towards demonstrating the cost reflectivity. So how the proposed prices have considered recovering the cost of providing that service. So two key concerns. One was the proposal brought the infill NCC charge. The infill is where you're connecting within existing development. For the central and the western, it brought them together in one step, and that was quite a significant reduction, 40% or thereabouts, in the current charge for the western region. So we weren't clear how that kind of reduction was consistent with the pricing principle, given it was moving further away from cost reflectivity. The other concern was around the greenfields or new development areas in the western region. The proposal had a single charge for the whole western region, and we were concerned that that means cheaper connections or more expensive connections were being sort of bundled up under the same charge. So we've asked Greater Western Water to come back on both of those issues and explain how they've considered those pricing principles. So at the end of the day, our draft decision adopts a revenue requirement of almost $3.5 billion across the 4-year period. And that's about 1.3% lower than the figure that Greater Western Water proposed originally. Now, there have been some other movements in that. That's a net figure. We've reduced our long-term inflation forecast as the inflation outlook improves, and that's had an increase in some of the forecast costs. So that is a net figure, and I'll stress at this point that that's based on our draft decision assumption. So Greater Western Water will respond to the draft decision, and the OPEX and CAPEX allowances may well change before our final decision. Lastly, the PREMO rating for the business, and this is our Performance, Risk, Engagement, Management and Outcomes acronym. This is an incentive mechanism, and it's around the business putting forward its best offer for customers. We agreed with the overall self-rating. The Greater Western Water had a standard rating, which says it meets all the requirements, generally meets all the requirements spelled out in our guidance. We also agreed with the higher self-rating of advanced for the engagement element. We thought Greater Western Water's engagement program in bringing together two quite distinct former business areas was very well done. We did downgrade the management element from standard to basic, and that mainly was reflecting those three adjustments at the top of the screen here, the shortfall in justifying the capital and operating expenditure proposals in the submission, and the concerns that we have around the new customer contribution proposals. So this table, I won't go through this in great detail, but this is a snapshot from Greater Western Water's price submission. So this doesn't reflect any changes we've made at our draft decision. And again, it will, if we did, it would just move again for the final decision. So this was the proposal as put in by Greater Western Water. And if you just look at the, and there's a range of different customer groups there. So those customers here today, you can probably pick out your appropriate customer group. And you'll see that for most residential customers, the current price their bills will fall from the current price, and by the end of the period still be below that in real terms. Now, this is before we add inflation. So the number there for 24-25, we haven't added this year's inflation figure yet. We'll do that with our final decision. Yeah, okay. And then we've just lost your, hang on, there we go. Thanks, John. So just a little bit more detail on these expenditure forecasts. This is the operating expenditure trend, and you can see that's across the current period and into the forecast period. The bottom line is the forecast at the last price review in 2018, and the red and the blue upper lines are the actual to date and the new forecast. And I've just circled the gap there in the 22-23. That's the last year of actual expenditure. So the focus of our assessment is verifying that those costs have increased and that they're recurring costs and that they're efficient recurring costs. So that's the focus of our assessment there. Thanks, John. With the capital investment program, likewise, the blue lines across the bottom were the outlook, or the approved and outlook at the last price review, and the green lines, the light green is the actual capital spend, and the dark green is the forecast spend. So you can see that that's opened up. So as the economic regulator, we look at that closely to make sure that that change in forecast is well justified by the business in terms of prudency, as in it's required, and it's an efficient solution. Thanks, John. Our draft decision recommended adjustments to both of those. So with the operating expenditure, that increase in the base year that I flagged, we weren't able to, well, the business wasn't able to provide the justification we needed to verify that prudency and efficiency for all of that increase. So we've accepted about 1/3 of the increase, but not 2/3. So the business will come back with further information to help justify that shortfall. Likewise, with capital expenditure, about 160 million or 9% of the proposed total from 3 particular programs. And we've been meeting with the Greater Western Water team over the last few weeks since the draft decision's gone out, and as they've indicated that they will definitely be providing further information on those expenditure items. I'll just point out, you might notice the capital expenditures over 5 years. Because we had that 1-year extension, we need to look at the current year's forecast because that wasn't assessed at the last price review, whereas operating expenditure is just the forecast period. If you want more details on that, you'll have to have a look at our draft decision. Thanks, John. So I mentioned before we accepted the standard Primo rating that was put forward by Greater Western Water. So in a nutshell, the different elements. So the first one, the management element, we found the price submission was generally well presented, clear links between the outcomes and the engagement and the expenditure forecasts in most cases. The second dot point, looking at performance in the current period, we were satisfied the business had delivered against its outcome commitments, and while progressing with the integration of the business, quite a challenging undertaking. The engagement program I mentioned earlier, we're quite comfortable that they've done a very good job there. The outcome measures and targets for the coming period that have been proposed by the business, we're also satisfied they meet all the requirements in our guidance, and there was strong support from the customers who helped develop that, and we'd like to see that endorsement from the customer group. We're just working with the business to finesse the wording on some of those measures, but that'll all be in place hopefully before final decision time. On the risk side, I mentioned earlier, risk is the risk that customers aren't being asked to pay more than they need to. We note that the business identified 173 million of additional capital expenditure that was possible in the period, but rather than included in prices, it's been left out for now, and if that expenditure is required, they'll seek to include it in prices from the next price review, and we recognise that's a good risk balancing approach. So just to sum everything up, what does our draft decision mean? So prices for most customers will decrease in real terms, that's before inflation, and the tariff structure reform will allow pricing across both regions to harmonise over time. Our customers will continue to receive quality drinking water and sewage services, and the business will be able to continue to invest in the growth to support new customers, that they all get that same level of service reliability. The business will continue to reduce its environmental footprint through greenhouse emissions. Each water business has got its own targets to meet, but notably for Greater Western Water, that investment in wastewater treatment plant upgrades just to meet their environmental discharge requirements. The draft decision asks for Greater Western Water to provide more information to support the new customer contribution proposal, which I mentioned earlier. So we're also discussing that with the business. So we're looking forward to receiving their response next week. And we said they may provide more information. We know that they will provide more information to support the expenditure forecasts from their original submission. That's the draft decision in a nutshell. Thank you. Back to you, Kate.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris, for that presentation. And as we move to the next slide, thanks very much, John. I'd just like to introduce Marie Lang, Managing Director of Greater Western Water. Thanks for being here with us today, Marie. Marie, I'll hand over to you now to present Greater Western Water's response to our draft decision. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Kate, and thank you also, Chris, for taking us through the draft decision. I'm sure that was really helpful for everyone on the call today as well. Can I thank the ESC team, first of all, my team, a number of which are on the call, community members, stakeholder groups and customers who are here today, and everyone who's supported the journey of the development of Greater Western Water's first price submission. We are very focused on getting the best for the West, and that's a phrase that you'll hear a few times today. And we're very much driven by our customer, community and stakeholder voices. And it's been great to hear ESC acknowledge our engagement program as well, which I'll touch on a little bit further. As I go through today's presentation, I'll continue to come back to the overall focus that both we and ESC share in terms of getting best for community and customer outcomes, and highlighting the benefits of our plans as well. As this is our foundational pricing submission, we're making sure that the investment and focus is in the right places at the right time to support sustainable and affordable growth for the West. So we very much welcome this opportunity to discuss our submission, to share how we will respond to the EFC's draft decision, and to answer any of your questions, and the team are here to support me as well with any questions that we might have. Thanks, John. If we can move to the next slide to kick off the conversation. I'd like to firstly acknowledge the traditional owners, of the land, thanks John, across which we have the great privilege to serve as Greater Western Water, and I respectfully acknowledge Australia's First Nations people as the traditional owners of this country, and personally the Boonwurrung people across whose lands I'm coming to you from today, and the peoples of the Kulin Nation across whose lands and waterways Greater Western Water has the privilege to serve and operate. I pay my respects to their elders and ancestors past and present, and acknowledge the continued cultural, social and spiritual connections that First Nations people have with the lands and waters, and recognise and value the care and protection that they have provided for thousands of generations. And this acknowledgement and respect is a very much an integral part of the way in which we operate at Greater Western Water, and that's reflected in our pricing submission also. So just moving on to who we are as Greater Western Water on the next slide there. Just thought I'd give a little bit of background for those who are on the call about who we serve and what we do every day. And as Chris outlined, we are Victoria's newest water business, established in 2021, when the two predecessor organisations, City West Water and Western Water, integrated to become Greater Western Water. That brought together a regional and a metropolitan business, and it means that we serve an incredibly diverse service area and population, from the centre of the CBD and the heart of Melbourne across the MCG, to some of the most populated and rapidly growing areas of Melbourne, to regional hubs across agricultural farming landscapes, and of course large industrial businesses. Out in the west, we also know that we are traditionally the hottest and driest part of Melbourne as well. So coupled with our changing climate and some of the fastest population growth in the country, we overlay that with the challenges of ageing assets, prior financial constraints on our investments. This means that we're now very much focused on shoring up our infrastructure assets and delivering upgrade programs to ensure that we are delivering safe and reliable water services to our communities. Across our service area, we also have an incredibly diverse portfolio of assets, not only pipelines and treatment plants, but also dams and reservoirs and pumping stations. So a huge diversity of assets that need to be upgraded and maintained. And so continuing to provide our customers with good quality service, especially in the face of growth and some of the broader challenges, we need to keep a focus on maintaining these assets in good shape. And this is the core focus of our foundational price submission. Very much setting the foundations for how we will serve our diverse community for generations to come, while meeting our 2030 strategy and vision of thriving people and country. So just looking now in terms of how our first price submission aims to set up a brighter future for water in the West, and certainly acknowledging that together, Greater Western Water and the ESC are determined to get the best possible outcomes for Melbourne West, and we've been working well together throughout that process to make that happen. Our proposal and response will deliver quality water services. It will support us to continue our journey to heal and care for country, and ensure that the West gets the same quality of service as the rest of metropolitan Melbourne. Our first price submission sets these solid foundations, and it makes sure that we have the right systems, processes and practices in place as we scale up and deliver services. We have a robust and significant investment program to support this, and our proposal and our forthcoming response shows that we are investing what's needed and when to support that growth. That investment being targeted at the right time and at the right scale to deliver the new and upgraded infrastructure, to ensure that we're providing those reliable water services, and making sure that all of our pipes and pumps and treatment plants are ready to deliver those services to customers, so that we're being efficient, we're not wasting water, and we're not damaging the environment. We're also working hard to make the most of the opportunities that arise from the integration of the two predecessor businesses, and we have appreciated ESC's acknowledgement of some of that complexity and our uniqueness as well. And we've proposed an ambitious and efficiency target for this regulatory period to reflect this circumstance. And our focus is very much on those internal efficiencies that keep our prices affordable and our business sustainable. We're focused on stable bills while supporting environmental health, supporting livability across our communities, and providing that investment that builds a strong foundation for our community. And importantly, we've listened to our customers in putting together this submission, and we will continue to listen to them throughout this regulatory period to deliver the services that they have told are important to them. So continuing on that theme of customer voice on the next slide there, John, and as a new business, it was so important that we heard from customers right across our diverse service area. And we were able to deliver an ambitious 6-stage engagement program for our submission that was designed to help us get to know our new customer base and their values, and help us ultimately then establish a new set of outcomes. This means that we are putting our customers at the heart of our investments and our plans. So beginning almost immediately after integration, we heard from more than 8,000 customers and community members and stakeholders through a variety of surveys, focus groups, pop-up events, forums, and of course, a very important deliberative panel. We heard from a wide variety of voices, and we prioritised hearing from harder to reach members of our community, including younger people, people with a disability, and of course, reaching in and across our very diverse cultural groups. We've included community partnerships in this engagement, such as the 11 local councils, small businesses, community support organisations and developers. And we've also very much appreciated traditional owner groups' willingness to engage with us in a way that made sense for them during our engagement process. So that diversity of insight and the diversity of expectation from our customers has really deeply informed our submission. And we're really pleased to see the breadth and depth of our engagement program recognised in the draft decision. Of course, that engagement doesn't stop today, and it certainly doesn't stop even with the next submission to the ESC. We're committed to ongoing customer engagement. And this includes continual and improved engagement with traditional owners and First Nations people, increasing support for customers experiencing vulnerability, including those who are experiencing family or domestic violence, and experiencing payment difficulties. Our newly established customer forum will help sure that we're continually touching and having touch points with our customers, making sure that we're on track. And our customer forum will help us report on and evolve our customer outcomes over time, making sure that they stay relevant for us together. And this, of course, reflects our commitment to accountability and transparency. And we're very pleased, as I said, that these elements of our submission have been supported by the Commission. I've mentioned our customer outcomes as we move on to the next slide, and very much at the heart of our proposal and our investment plan. So our engagement program determined our 5 customer outcomes, and these were endorsed by the deliberative panel, which was formed by a representative group of our customers across our diverse service area. So our customer outcomes are straightforward, clear and simple, and with a little bit of tweaking across the next couple of weeks, we'll also get them resolved with the ESC, which is fantastic. So just to talk to those for a moment. So first of all, the customer outcomes. Your water is safe, consistent and resilient. When things go wrong, we fix them. We support our diverse communities and customers. We enable growth and we help businesses to thrive. And we heal and care for country. And on the screen, you can see the headings of those customer outcomes. And you can also see a snapshot of our investment program and how our investment program is working to deliver directly on those customer outcomes. The ESC's draft decision has accepted our top 10 projects and the majority of our capital program, with the largest investment areas in the water and sewer growth programs. We've heard clearly that waterway health is really important to our customers, and so we're significantly investing in upgrades to our sewage treatment plants. with improvements planned for Gisborne, Woodend, Romsey and Melton. And even with this large program of work, we recognise that there will still be more to do across the coming periods. From a water supply perspective, we're building new pipes and tanks to make sure that we can deliver reliable and equitable water services to our whole region and improve water quality and resilience, again, across our whole region, even during hot and dry periods. Of course, at the same time as building new infrastructure, we will continue to repair and replace our ageing infrastructure. Again, the diversity of our service area means that we do have significant ageing infrastructure from the CBD through the suburbs. And our water main and renewal programs will upgrade ageing pipes to prevent bursts and leaks. And this makes sure that when people turn on the taps, the water comes out. And also that our waterways are not harmed from excess water coming from bursts or leaks as well. This is very important. We know that technology is key to operating an efficient network where we can maintain, track and communicate our services or outages to customers. Our asset ecosystem program will make sure that when things go wrong, we're able to quickly respond to them and keep our customers in the loop while we undertake repairs. And we know that that was a key outcome for customers. At every stage of our engagement, customers told us that we need to invest in alternative water for open public green spaces. And that's particularly to address challenges and changes in climate change, population growth, and decreased rainfall. And that will also help with our growing demand. We proposed to do this by co-investing in stormwater harvesting programs with local councils and land managers. And these programs will help us save our drinking water for drinking while keeping parks and sporting fields green. This, we know, supports livability for our diverse communities and, again, supports equity across our service area. While this program of investment is large, we are finding other ways to keep bills stable, including our commitment to become a more efficient business. And this is reflected in our ambitious efficiency target of 3%. So just turning now to our response over the coming days now with the ESC and some of the areas that Chris outlined that we're working on and that we will be responding to. As we've highlighted, the Commission has agreed to some of our proposals and asked for further evidence about others. And so that's part of the conversation today. We're really pleased that the Commission supports most of our proposals and has also acknowledged the depth and success of our engagement program and also the overall quality of the submission and modelling. They've also accepted our simplified tariff structures, which is great for customers, and also the expanded guaranteed service levels. Again, a really great outcome for customers in seeing that those GSLs, guaranteed service levels, expand and grow. We've been asked to provide some further evidence for our expenditure in some key areas, and these relate to some of our operational costs and where there were increases related to integration, compliance and corporate costs, and also to provide further evidence as it relates to our future capital expenditure, primarily for stormwater harvesting, our asset ecosystem program, and for water main renewals. Overall, the additional information that ESC has asked for relates to some really key programs that we see as critical for us to meet demand and compliance and customer expectations. So we'll be working hard to provide that further information and the evidence to support the expenditure in our proposal and providing that additional information in our response. As Chris flagged, the ESC has also asked for some further information about how our proposed new customer contribution charges, the NCC structure, meets the requirements of their guidance. And we're working with the ESC to understand and address these areas. And our response may have some adjustments to reflect this. We've also continued to review our proposal for areas where we can take on additional risk for our customers by not recovering the full amount of the expected cost of some programs. So this may mean needing to find additional revenue streams or carrying more debt for a period to ensure that we can deliver those outcomes and deliver what our customer and communities need. We're confident that our formal response will provide the right evidence to the ESC so that we're also able to support our vision of getting the best for the West. Of course, our pricing submission, and particularly being our first pricing submission, is not set and forget. We'll continue to be transparent and accountable to deliver our proposal, and we'll do this through twice yearly outcome reporting, working closely with our customer forum, who will meet and oversee our approach and our performance. So thank you. It's been great to have the opportunity to present today. We are genuinely proud of the work we have done to deliver our price submission. It is our foundational submission and it focuses on getting the best for the West. Through our proposal and our response, we're working to demonstrate that we are investing appropriately to meet growth, while also working hard to deliver efficiency and improved environmental outcomes. I want to acknowledge our customers at this point. Your voices have deeply influenced our submission to create a proposal and a response now that is all about best for the West, and we'll hold ourselves deeply accountable to this. Thank you also to the ESC team and to Kate and Chris for continuing to work with us and for the opportunity to speak today. And we're very much looking forward with providing the Commission with some additional information on those key programs to support your final decision making on our program. Finally, just a shout out to the GWW team, the Greater Western Water team, for all of their hard work, and again to our customers and our communities for coming on this journey with us. Kate, I think I'm now handing back to you for facilitating some questions.
Great, thanks very much, Marie, for that presentation on Greater Western Water's, as you say, first pricing submission, to hear how you are focusing on the best for the community and customer outcomes, and how the business is planning to respond to our draft decision. So thank you for your time and presenting to the group here today. And at this point in the forum, it's the perfect time to open up the discussion and hear some views from outside the Commission on anything that's been raised today or on other topics or concerns relating to Greater Western Water's pricing submission and our draft decision. Just a reminder, this public forum is being recorded. This means that any statement, comment you make or question you ask will be included in the recording. Any question you ask using the chat function may be read out along with your name and be included in the recording as well. For any verbal comments, please use the raise your hand function and you'll be invited to unmute your microphone, turn on your camera and say your name and organisation. If you are calling in via phone, please also say your name and location prior to speaking. If we can't get to all the questions today, please feel free to contact our water team at the ESC at water@esc.vic.gov.au. So at that point, I'll open up the room for discussion, and I think I can see a couple of hands up. I think the team are letting me know that welcome to Helen Vandenberg. I think you might have had your hand up first. So welcome to the forum and look forward to hearing your question or query. Welcome, Helen. Helen, can you get yourself off mute? Excellent. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, and I would like to commend Greater Western Water for their hard work, their professionalism, to transparent dialogue with. I'm a previous customer of, and I'm involved in Friends of Steel Creek and the Maribyrnong and Waterways Association, and we will be making a further submission in support of the statement of the cuts to capital works and operational expenditure. But my question is, what additional revenue streams are available to Greater Western Water? And the reason I want to know is that in spite of the good work that they're doing and plan to do in upgrading treatment systems, they are not going to meet the standard necessary for protecting and improving the waterway, the health of our waterway. If we accept that they're living entities and the quality of water discharged from a treatment system must be able to sustain aquatic life, and the current emergency releases in particular don't do that. Now, there are good plans there, but there will be, and Marie has already explained openly that there is further work to do. The only solution that I can see is that there has to be another revenue raising mechanism. And I think there's a need to explain to customers that some price rises are going to be inevitable if we want community and the environment to thrive in the West. Right? Now, so what are the options that Greater Western Water has in getting additional revenue to hasten the speed of the treatment plant upgrades for a start? Maybe somebody in the ESC could answer that as well. Because if we're going to constantly suppress prices, we're just going to finish up with failing infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Helen, for that query and your reflections for today's forum. Marie and Greater Western Water, I think there are some aspects of Helen's matters she's raised that I think are best that I direct to you in terms of the revenue raising mechanism, some of the comments that Helen's made. Can I hand over to you, Marie, or someone else from Greater Western Water?
Thank you, Kate, and thank you very much, Helen, for your question and also for your engagement with us through this process. It's really helped to challenge and push and build our understanding in this space, which is really very, very much appreciated. The space that we're in, as you've seen in our proposal, is that our focus in the near term, so the next 4 years of this pricing submission, is very much focused on uplifting compliance. You know, we know we've got to lift the bar there, and that's the absolute key priority. And equally, as you've highlighted, we've got more to do, and that's a key challenge for us. And we'll be looking to undertake clearly more work across the treatment plants in the West to make sure that we're reducing our impact further as well. And you've really highlighted the key challenge in terms of how we fund that appropriately, and that is the crux of the challenge. Sitting here today, I don't have an answer for you in terms of what those alternative revenue options might be. We've flagged that as something that we will continue to look into. It's a challenge at times, isn't it? Because sometimes alternative revenue sources can distract us from the main game as well. And as a new business, we want to be really focused on building those foundations for us as a new business. So there are challenges for us. I absolutely agree with you. And in this pricing submission, we've tried to get that balance right in terms of hearing customer voices and the need to maintain affordability over the shorter term while doing as much as we can in the short to medium term as well.
I just hope the government realise they have a responsibility here, because water literacy is generally poor, and the government has a responsibility both to help the agencies engage in water literacy, which is not easy, and they also need to make revenue available according to the tasks that you've got, because you have in fact inherited a system that was allowed to run down deplorably, basically I would assume because it didn't have a customer base to pay for it. So, and the government has allowed and encouraged growth that wasn't planned for adequately or predicted accurately. And if we delay necessary expenditure, the cost becomes greater. So I hope the ESC would also support Greater Western Water in discussions with government and with Treasury to point out that if they're going to constantly say suppress prices, that ultimately there's going to be more expensive. I mean, that's just common sense when it comes. So we're getting alarmed by this constant suppression of costs, which we see as having a huge environmental degradation, which doesn't do either the community or our environment any good. So anyhow, I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I'm sure there are other people.
Thank you very much, Helen, for those very important reflections, and Marie for your response from Greater Western Water. Given some of what you've raised, Helen touched on the ESC's role. Marcus is our Executive Director of price monitoring regulation. Marcus, was there anything else you wanted to add into the conversation at this point?
Oh, look, thanks for that question, Helen, and thanks for the points you've made. I would just recognise, as Chris highlighted, this is a very large capital program. It is a big expansion. I think doing a larger program is not probably a matter of a price constraint, but really there are physical constraints at which the timing, things like treatment plants can be built, the approval process is necessary. But this is a very large capital, far larger than the two prior businesses we're envisaging, as shown in those slides of Chris. A lot of that is towards upgrades to sewage treatment plants and is environmentally driven. I think the level of growth in the West, and we did have changes in patterns of intrastate migration coming out of the pandemic. So some areas have perhaps grown more than anyone expected, but it is a very large program. It's not something that's being curtailed or throttled, and the aspects of the price submission where we haven't allowed expenditure relate to the underlying business cases and demonstrating the prudency and efficiency that we're expecting Greater Western to come back between the draft and final decision on those. But they're certainly they're not about trying to curtail or lower prices. It's really a legal obligation we have to assess prudency and efficiency, and we're asking for more information on some of those, on those three programs. But I want to show you that there is a very big program being undertaken by Greater Western, and it's not being sort of artificially lowered or something because of pricing constraints or price outcomes. I think the challenge in the current environment for all water businesses is there's a very hot civil construction market out there, and actually finding contractors to do some of the work, and prices are actually rising to actually do some of this in a pretty short space of time. So I assure you it's not trying to do these things. There's a lot of work, I think, being done by the business and us as regulators in ensuring that they are pursuing those objectives, but doing it in an efficient manner. And we do have to be mindful of the affordability of services to customers, given the cost of living impacts on some of the customers out there. And again, that is an aspect we didn't probably talk much going through, that Greater Western is improving support for customers facing payment difficulty through this period as well. So, but really, thanks for your question. You've raised some good points and the broader policy aspects we're happy to raise with the department, and there are some departmental observers here today as well. So thanks, Helen.
Thanks very much, Marcus and Helen. I think the next hand up was Ross Colliver. So Ross, if you wanted to unmute your microphone, turn on your camera, tell us your name and where you're from, feel free to ask your question. Welcome, Ross.
Thank you. I don't know if my image is coming through. No, it's not. Apologies.
Yes, I can hear you, Ross. All good.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just go with the audio. My name's Ross Colliver. I'm speaking on behalf of the Water Think Tank, which is a network of community environment groups around the Macedon Range, so in the top end of the Maribyrnong catchment. And we formed 18 months ago now to better understand the water system and how it's being managed in all aspects of water management. So that we can give informed opinion when we're asked about water matters. So we've been doing that for the last 18 months, meeting approximately monthly and looking at many aspects of the water system. So we've got enough under our belt to actually make some sense of the process that we're in here. That is, that the pricing submission goes to the ESC, which assesses it against the standards that it's set for pricing submissions. We will make some specific commentary on 4 matters that have been cut in the draft decision: the allocation to stormwater, the pace of sewage plant upgrades, the monitoring of the infrastructure ecosystem, and the mains program. And Helen Vandenberg's comment goes to the heart of all of that, which is that we need to set up a way to maintain the pace of capital investment for parts of this business area, such as the Upper Maribyrnong, where population is growing more rapidly than most of the estimates we're aware of, and drying out more rapidly than any of us would like. So my response and question goes to well, firstly, to state the importance of building the customer voice into the business. But secondly, the difficulty of bringing the voice of the creeks, of the waterway system, of the land itself, into that conversation between the different user groups and with the business. What we've been struggling with is, as we come to understand the water system, is that what we struggle with is how to explain and present what's happening in the waterways, in the actual physical waterways, the life of the creeks. And the data on that is spread across a number of agencies. We have our lived experience living alongside creeks and doing work to care for them. But there's a real challenge for us as an interested group in speaking for the creeks. And I feel that the point we're at with the business is looking for stronger ways, more effective, more sustainable ways to have the voice, us as intermediaries for the creeks, to have the voice maintained in the business. I really think it's fantastic what Greater Western Water has committed to in building customer voice into its business. The next step is those 6 monthly customer conversations, forums, is to support special interests like the creeks and other users in the system to be able to speak into those forums in an informed way and in an articulate way, in a collaborative way. I guess this is just saying, to me, that's where this approach to a business that's taking responsibility for its customers and for the country in which it's working, getting the voice of the customers built into the business is really going to drive that. So I suppose I'm not even proposing a question here. I'm just affirming the value of Greater Western Water's approach to its customers in building them into the business. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ross, for those important reflections. I do wonder whether I just give you the opportunity, Marie, just to make any reflections you'd like to. There was particularly aspects that Ross raised around the pace of some of the upgrades that's required, as well as the importance of the customer voice in relation to creeks and waterways and what that will look like going forward. I know you touched on that a little bit in your presentation, but the opportunity is there if you'd like to make any reflections in response.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Ross, for your comments and reflections. And we have very much appreciated being able to engage with the think tank over the last period and in the time to come as well. So hugely valued the conversations and the engagement for us to better understand the waterways across the Macedon Ranges. And we know that waterways in the West are some of the most stressed waterways in the state. And we also know that, that as you've highlighted also, that the roles and responsibilities can be spread across many agencies, and we don't shy away from our role with respect to improving the quality and the outcomes of treatment plants, for example, as we've prioritised within this pricing submission. I just also want to just thank you for what I'm taking as a really important piece of feedback and suggestion in terms of how we bring the voice of the creek more actively into our engagement process. So I'm going to take that away, and the team are going to think more about that over the coming period. And while we very much appreciate your role as intermediaries, as you said, I think there's a fantastic conversation with the think tank and with other groups to recognise over the coming periods of time how we recognise the creeks along with the other key waterway managers in the West as well. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross and Marie. Marcus, was there anything else you wanted to add at that point?
Look, probably just for Marie, a follow-up, and I think sometimes come up perhaps this, but some of the work we done last year and some of the things of some of the challenges on some of the creeks and waterways where there may be joint responsibilities. So you may have roles, Melbourne Water, parts of your area, Southern Rural Water, and perhaps even the roles local government may play. Anything you can add about how you work across organisations to actually come together on those issues, because that's often perhaps a bigger challenge than what you do individually yourself.
Thanks, Marcus, and I think that really kind of puts a nice bow on that aspect of the conversation. So first and foremost, obviously, as reflected in this pricing submission, we're seeking significant investment to improve the upgrade our wastewater treatment plants across the West, and that is a key driver of how we can improve outcomes, environmental outcomes, and where relevant waterway outcomes there as well. We also heard from our deliberative panel that they are seeking for us to engage and be active in working across the different agencies and the different partners who are waterway managers and land managers in the West as well. So our deliberative panel told us very clearly that they highly value waterway health and they recognise our role, and they're seeking for us to take on that strong facilitation and partnership role. And partnership particularly such as the Stormwater Investment Program and Partnership Program as one example there as well. We have a really key role within integrated water management across the West, so we're active in all of the catchment forums across the West as well, and they're really starting to get really super granular in terms of the outcomes and projects and initiatives that will deliver outcomes both for waterway outcomes, but also then for making sure that we're using drinking water for drinking as well. So thanks, Marcus, for that question. And we certainly recognise our role and the direct impact we have as reflected in this pricing submission, as well as the role that we have as a key leader in the West and as a key facilitator across multiple agencies.
Thanks for the question, Marcus, and thanks very much, Marie. I've just told by the team we have one question Q&A, and given the time, it might be the last time we have time for, but still, if there are any other queries, feel free to pop them in the chat and we can get back and answer those later. But I think there's one standing question now that I'll go to, and it's from James Zhu. And the question is, will the ESC and GWW be publishing any guidance once the ESC makes its final decision, especially if lower expenditure forecasts are maintained by the ESC? Will this mean GWW will have to cut certain planned projects? And I think this is a question probably best answered by the ESC team. And Chris, possibly you might like to take that question. So over to you.
So I think Marcus was keen to respond to this one.
Go for it, Marcus. Thanks, Chris.
I'll guess it. Look, ultimately what the Commission, and this is perhaps the nuance of the pricing way, it's examination of proposal and works programs that are put forward. What is allowed is an overall expenditure allowance over the next 4 years, and whatever is approved, that things will change. I think as you saw the graphs area, more's been spent. No one probably actually, when we done the last decision, envisaged a merger occurring. So things will change. It doesn't actually mean a work program. Some instances might be saying sharpen the pencil slightly to deliver the same. It's also whether it's the timing about when things are recommended in pricing for cost recovery. So as noted, that Greater Western will come back on a couple of these, saying we just need, because our legal task is to assess prudency and efficiency of investment, that they'll come back with more information on a couple of those programs that we haven't allowed for this time. I expect a number of those will find their way back in for a final decision. After the reviews, we won't be releasing so guidance. There will be an annual reporting of outcomes. So each year, Greater Western will report on how it's gone against the commitments it's made. But importantly, the businesses do have flexibility to adjust their capital programs that over time, if we go into drier periods, we sometimes find waterworks need to be brought forward. If we have wetter than expected years, then extra pressure comes on the sewerage system through inflows and infills. So sometimes those projects and timings and priorities change. So I mean, an important part of the pre-rate pricing framework is it is fairly flexible and adaptive, and businesses can work within those broad allowances to deliver what are their priorities. And we recognise those do change, but nothing is a strict no, you can't do it. It's very rare a regulator makes those calls, but at the moment, between draft and final, can we have further information to justify the cost assumptions underpinning it? If there's some slightly lower revenue allowance, noting there's a very large revenue allowance, it provides the capacity for a very expansive work program. So I'm not expecting major changes coming out of any final decision here. As noted, we've endorsed most of the capital and operating expenditure and the outcomes and priorities of Greater Western. So, and we will both be reporting back over time about the outcomes that are achieved under that.
Thank you very much, Marcus. James, was there anything else you wanted to add to that? And it'd probably be good for the record just to understand what organisation you're from as well. If you're happy to put that in the chat, I can read it out. Otherwise, feel free to jump in and ask anything else you'd like to. Sure if James is still with us. I'll leave that comment there, but in the meanwhile, I don't think there are any other hands up around the virtual room, and I don't think that there are any other things in the chat or the Q&A. But as I said before, if there's anything else that anyone would like to raise after today, feel free to reach out to the water team. And given the time, it is 2:41. It's been a very good conversation this afternoon. Marie, unless there's anything else you'd like to particularly raise from GWW, I might move to close the Q&A and move to close the session.
Just to thank you and the team again, Kate. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks very much, Marie. Well, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a really useful conversation on a number of key areas this afternoon. As I said before, between now and the 7th of May, next Tuesday when submissions close, I really encourage you to liaise with Marcus and the Commission's water team, who are available to field any other questions you might have. And please feel free to pop a submission into Engage Victoria too before they close. I think the link is still in the meeting chat there for you to have easy access to. So on behalf of Commission staff, I'd really like to extend my sincere thanks for everyone who's joined us today, including all our stakeholders, including your questions. Thank you very much. And their representatives from Greater Western Water and Marie Lang. It's been very valuable to hear your thoughts. I know the team is looking forward to continuing to hear your feedback. Thank you very much, everyone, today, and I'll now close the meeting. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you.